Correctly using your characters is one of the most fundamentally important elements of Total War Warhammer, and it's one of the trickiest elements for new players to get their heads around. Today we're going to go through my top 10 tips, which will run through the most important skills to get, ones to avoid, and more importantly, make sure you choose which heroes and characters to build yourself around, because powerful characters equal a powerful campaign. Welcome to Elven Plot Armor, and these are my top 10 tips for powerful characters and how to level them. Now, tip number one is when it comes to characters, let's do the heroes first. The two most important roles are undeniably line holding and magic. Line holding to pin the enemy in place is so critically important. This allows you to choose your engagements, which is what this game is fundamentally about. If you are the one choosing the engagement, you can pin the enemy in place, volley them with arrows, you can flank with cavalry. The choice is yours to make sure those engagements are favorable, but having strong line holders are fundamentally key to being able to ensure this. So which characters should you get? Well, let's have a look at the Dark Elves. This is an old campaign from a live stream. You can dig it up if you want to, but it shows the different characters the Dark Elves can choose from. So the two standouts are, well, we've got a Master here, and what's he got? Over 100 armor? Outstanding. That is going to help hold the line. He's got over 45 melee defense, going to be great for a line holder, especially in the early stages. But let's compare him to the Death Hag. Not quite as good. Well, she looks great, but she's got terrible armor, so she's going to get beat up really quickly. She's got good melee defense and a bit of resist, but ultimately she's not going to hold the line that well. Also, she doesn't have a shield, so hands down, Masters are the hero of choice to get early on. But also, what about spellcasters? You absolutely need them on the field. So from the Lord or the hero approach, make sure you have one spellcaster in every single army. If you're new to the game, magic is so key and so important. Just take the time to learn fire, life, and shadows. They are quite widely available across many of the races, and you're best off choosing the law of magic that you know that you can perform with. So get good with life, fire, and shadow, and you will really notice yourself punching up. So get that caster and get that defensive hero on the field. Just a quick reminder, guys, if you are enjoying the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out. Ask any question in the comments. I answer everything. And if you'd like to talk strategy, feel free to join the Discord. Cheers. Now, the next point is how to level them, which stats are important. Defensive stats above all else. It does not matter. Don't worry about melee attack over melee defense. We've got melee attack here, but when leveling up, always max out melee defense. Get what you need to move to the next tree, and then if there's more melee defense, get that too. Melee defense for characters is the most important stat because this is what will keep them alive, particularly for frontline holders. Now, why is melee defense so much more important than melee attack? Let's just picture a character here. He's surrounded by 5 different models. For every one time he swings, he's getting hit 5 times. Therefore, the value of melee defense is going to have a more varying impact. But most of all, keeping characters alive can be a monumental pain in the tail. Point number 3 is choosing the skills that are not combat based. So spellcasting heroes should focus on going down their magic line. Melee heroes should be focused on going down their melee defense and hit point baseline first and foremost. Make sure you have the character in their own element taken care of first. Then and only then start focusing on these abilities down here. Unless you're more advanced, many of these abilities I see sending new players broke. You don't really need to do it. That being said, Stimulate Growth is very good to quickly level up a province, but the single most important one is this: Replenishment. This ability is something you will see many advanced players flock to very quickly. Their MO for your character's early game is getting good line holding, getting good casting, and getting, if possible, replenishment, because each battle this will boost your forces back up, meaning you can keep on moving and don't need to spend turns healing yourself back up. But note, life magic can also do this to heal your heroes up whilst you're on the battlefields. Point number 4 is consider which mounts are going to be right for that particular character. You know, I love to simplify things. There are only 2 types of mount. We have nimble mounts and powerhouse mounts. A nimble mount is, say, like a flying Pegasus, a flying nightmare that can just dart around the battlefield, pull a middle finger at hordes of enemy troops, and then cast Oblivion on them. So yes, nimble mounts are very good for casters to be able to weave around enemy artillery, around those arrows, arrows and just cast at free will and easily get out of trouble if possible. On the other hand, we have powerhouse mounts, and these are things like dragons, bears, anything that is big, bulky, and has the mass to get out of trouble, but also hits like a ton of bricks. And there's of course things like Bale Taurus, which can do both because they are glorious. But in the early game, this is the way you want to divide it. Now this is important. The Empire Captain can get on a Pegasus very early, but his stats aren't that good at this point. So he will find himself diving in on a fragile mount, getting surrounded, and you'll find him getting killed more often than not. He's actually better off staying on a single horse or even on foot, able to hold down a whole enemy unit, allowing you to pepper them with your gunfire. Point number 5, do not waste skill points on things that you can simply level up through ancillaries. And for those that don't know, ancillaries are just a name for these followers that you get from usually winning battles, leveling up, and you can basically equip them on almost anything you want. For example, this sorceress could increase public order with this skill here up to a max of 3 per turn. Or we can put in this follower, and that's a cumulative +8 for doing nothing. And if we want to take it off that character, we can remove them and then place someone elsewhere. There's no longer a 1-turn cooldown. It's a bit overpowered, but it's there. So don't waste skill points on something you can simply achieve by taking followers off one army and then putting them on the characters on the other side of the map. Once again, making sure these very vital early game skill points are geared towards increasing your magic, increasing your line holding, and your overall power as a faction. That's heroes, and some of that applies to the next section, which is lords. Now we're talking about generals, the lords of your army. Now, which ones should you pick? Well, this one here is going to be a bit of a hot take, but you want my honesty here. As a general rule of thumb, always take the caster lord. This will have far more late game power. Characters are a special commodity. Every battle you fight is an opportunity of experience to go towards what can be a late game investment. This means when you choose a lord, this should be a carefully made decision of someone that you want to level up into the late game. I like to roleplay, so I like to usually have one of each lord in my armies, but if I'm going full balls to the wall and need dependability, I will always go for the caster lord, almost always with most of the factions. And the reason is that once they level up, their squishiness, which is pretty much their only weakness, gets overcome by mounts, which will then turn them into a powerhouse in melee as well. So you've basically circumvented their one weakness, and they can essentially do more or less what the melee lord would do anyway. Yes, you can get some really nice traits on some of these characters, but I'm just being dead set honest. It's nice to have, but does it win battles? I really don't think so. My honest opinion is that equipment and minor buffs, they're nice, but they don't determine battles. Magic determines battles. Magic will win things which otherwise are unwinnable. Once you get them on a Black Dragon, they're doing basically the same thing as the Melee Lord. Now, the only time I would ever get the Melee Lord is if they are level 1 or level 2. At level 1 and 2, you don't have any good spells, and it's not going to be usually enough to win the encounter. However, at level 3, Shadow Mages can cast Pendulum, and that will make a difference. Fire Mages can cast the Burning Head. Makes a huge difference. These are the spells that win battles, and this takes me to point 8, which is the red skill tree. Magic and this skill line are the things that will really determine your game. I usually recommend put this first point in Route Marcher if you're new particularly and don't know the map, because nothing is more infuriating than not being able to make that distance. Campaign movement range is incredibly powerful, incredibly important. Always get it whenever you can, but once you put that first point down, casters will usually want to go along their casting line to at least get, there's usually an it spell. For this Law of Magic, it's Pit of Shade, so we might want some extra reserves, but after we've done that, we want to then specialize in our military units. Now, this is a tip that works with several factions in the game, and it's the magic point in melee defense. Most factions will have a single point. Sometimes it takes 2 points to get it, but that you can usually get one skill here which will increase the melee defense on your fundamental defensive infantry. Cathay need to put 2 points into it to get it, but people snub their nose at this because they're basic units. There are so many points that you don't really see any material value in the game. You will see material value in this through several turns of the game, and this means these basic units can pump up your armies, and this allows our basic units to lower our costs, lower our upkeep, so we can have more armies reaching out, defending and attacking where needed. So that is A bit of a side tip here, but even more important than that is specialize in the unit that makes your faction work the way it's meant to. For the Dark Elves, we absolutely want to put 3 points in Sheaf Master because it increases our crossbow's effectiveness. Same as High Elves for archers, for dwarfs, quarrelers and thunderers. Boost those. If you're playing as Khorne, getting those bloodletters to flank in even harder, very, very effective. Depending on how much your faction needs to boost its units will depend on how much you need to prioritize this. For example, the High Elves and Dark Elves, they need to get these quite early on for the most case. Getting the unique campaign skills that are often unique to that faction. Some of these might be replenishment, other things might help your slaves if you are the Dark Elves. If you specialize in big units like Imrik, getting Quartermaster is excellent, and this last one here, which gives more campaign movement and even more reduced upkeep, will get very expensive armies to operate very, very cheaply. So this game, all you spend money on is construction and armies. This is a huge reduction in upkeep. Also, the unique skills, so at level 12, your legendary lords will gain access to their unique skill line, and absolutely prioritize these if they're what you want. Don't just blindly put points in this because you may get more out of boosting your Dark Shards in this case. So don't just think because it's a unique skill it's necessarily better. Weigh it up between whether your lord maybe needs a bit more defensiveness, like we've done here for Malice to make him hold the line better because he's a defensive melee lord. We specialize in Dark Shards, so he's put some points here. The Dark Elves themselves specialize in their slave economy. This helps us obtain that. So here you can see that I'm balancing all 3 priorities, but I'm following the same rules fundamentally. I'm boosting my stats defensively first and foremost, I'm bolstering the units that are key to my faction's success, and getting skills along the campaign line that support this particular race or army. I've obtained the level 12 skills which will help him uniquely, prioritizing the ones which I need now, and of course I will get the rest of them once I level up enough. And last of all, tip number 10 is keep your characters alive, and so important. If you lose characters, if possible, reload the battle, just keep them hidden if you need to, because powerful characters equal a powerful campaign. Don't just settle for them dying and re-leveling. You will really notice when they get to around turn 15 and especially onwards, they will really help deliver and are the difference between a good and a very good campaign. Here's a couple of tips that you can use to help them on that way. So it looks like we've got some enemy armies here. I think we can take them. We absolutely could take them on the battlefield, but just say we weren't. I'm thinking, oh no, what have I done? I'm going to lose, but these characters, level 15, he's level 20, but just say level 19, I'm going to lose these guys, can't handle it. What we do, they can't die if they're not in the army. So just take them out of the army and get them to run home with their tail between their legs. It is far better than losing the character. If I want to keep the army but don't want the lord to die, I can just simply go down here, replace the lord with someone who's... We can't get a level 3 caster. Oh, there we go. We have a level 3 caster right here. It's going to be a fire mage with burning head. They'll be able to overstep, and there we are. So we saved our heroes. We've saved the lord, even though he's immortal, but good example, right? As a rule of thumb, feel free to have one of each type in your main army. It'll keep them leveled up and you will learn what all of them can do for you. But just remember, line holding, casting and replenishment are probably the 3 most powerful things you can do. If you'd like to see the Dark Elf tier list, click here. If you would like to see the Yuan Bo walkthrough, click here. This is Elvin, I'll see you next time. Cheers.